Welcome to Boomers on Travel. Yes, you can enjoy travel to foreign and exotic destinations, even if you're a boomer on a tight budget. Here are your hosts, Irene and Mike. Now, let's talk travel.
Hi, everyone. Here we are again, Boomers on Travel, with Irene and Mike. And boy, we sure have an exciting program for you today. We have our special friends, Babs and Robert. We actually call them Rob, and they are our friends that have been expats. They originally came from Wales, and when they retired, they went on to Italy, and then from there they became expats in the U.S. So Mike is going to go ahead and ask them some questions because we know there's listeners out there that have probably thought that they might want to leave the country that they've lived in and all their life they're familiar with and try something else exciting and travel and maybe, go abroad and live for several years. So Mike's going to go ahead and ask them some questions, and here he is.
Hi, folks. As we say, we got Rob and Babs here. And, a lot of us, when you think of exotic travel, living in another country, it sounds really exciting. It's almost like owning that bed and breakfast, Newhart show. It looks so easy, and now everybody's friendly, but it's a hard job. It's a hard life. But just talking to you guys, you told me there's been some pretty difficult times, especially owning property. And Rob, how about fill us in a little bit about that?
Well, property in Italy, owning it. It's a nightmare, I think, with all the bureaucracy in Italy. It might sound a great idea on the surface to go and buy a property there, and this is what we thought as well. But when you have to go troll through all the bureaucracy of buying the house, it's unbelievable. And yeah, precisely. And getting your residency, and if you do go out there, you want to buy a car as well. That's another hoo-ha problem. Expense as well. Wow, is it insurance expensive out there? So it's not all roses, but if you want to go out there, I would certainly recommend people rent, because you can have, go for a few weeks, see how you like the place, see what, look at the surroundings, travel around, sample the food, meet the locals, extremely friendly, love Italy, and, rent a car for a month. This is the way to do it, I think, and then you'll get a flavour of what it's like. Then if you want to do it for longer, well, make your plans from there on. But buying, ooh.
Do you mind telling us some of the pitfalls you guys went through by buying? Because you mentioned that, with the realtor and there's multiple owners sometimes and all that good stuff.
Yeah, well, I will pass you over to Beloved because she's more into that.
Okay. The problem is in Italy, when people... When older property, which is most of the property, when someone dies, the children, if you've got a will or not, the children and the spouse or partner inherit the house. So you could have a wife, if her husband dies, that owns half the house, and the other half is owned by perhaps several children. Then, when they die, then the same thing happens again. So you'll get a lot of property that is owned by many, many people that hardly know each other. So you could look at a house that you want to buy and, obviously the house is for sale, but we know a lot of people that have become unstuck by buying a house, and the people that are selling the house aren't the only owners. So it's very, very difficult. And we looked at a lot of property where perhaps it was a 2-story house and the ground floor was for sale, and then next door the second floor or the third floor were for sale. So you wouldn't own a whole house. You would own part of this house, part of next door's house, part of another house in the village. So when we bought, we wanted a whole house, which we found owned by Germans. So I think it was easier because it was owned by Germans, not Italians. So we bought a 3-story house, 700 years old, with a roof terrace and a summer kitchen on the roof that was owned by Germans. So we bought it because it was a whole house, and it wasn't just part of the house and part of next door and part of another house. So that's primarily why we bought it.
That's great information. Now, could you tell us how you even came about becoming an expat? We're talking about the house before we explain to our audience why you actually left Wales and became expats in Italy.
We've lived in Wales all our lives. We've lived in Colwyn Bay, North Wales, and when we were retired, it's very nice in that area. The mountains up the valleys, great when the weather's good. But we retired and we were thinking, what are we going to do? The weather's not so clever, even in the summer. Don't like the winters either. So we wanted to move. Well, I have relations in Italy. My auntie lives in Naples, along with one of my cousins. And my other cousin lives in La Spezia, in Liguria. So we thought we'll give Italy a whirl. So we took a couple of weeks out there and had a look round. We saw some totally inappropriate properties, and usually some of them up in the hills somewhere. You know, you're driving for an hour or so in your car, twisty, turny roads, to visit some blinking hovel, which was not very good. And then one day we came across this particular property, the one my wife was saying, and we decided to have a look at it. It was very nice. There was no for sale sign. So we just happened to be passing an Immobilier, which is a realtor in Italy, and we saw this in the window with a price which would sharp intake of breath, much more than we could afford. So anyway, we didn't bother. We went back to the UK, and then after a couple of weeks, Beloved thought, I wonder if that place is still for sale. It's very nice, very nice. So she rang the Immobilier. Oh, yes, it's still for sale. Yes. Well, are you still interested? Yes. Okay, well, come over and talk to the people, the owners of it, which was he said were Germans. So off we went, back to Italy. So after some negotiating backwards and forwards, we ended up paying a much reduced price, still a reasonable price, but a much reduced one. So that was it. We bought the house, walked out of the Immobilier and think, what on earth have we done? So from there on, the following year we moved in, and that was an event in itself. Yeah, oh dear. Anyway, but we've enjoyed the place. We spent an awful lot of money on it because 700-year-old houses, things fall off walls and fall apart and what have you, ceilings, and oh dear me. But we did spend a lot of money on it, and we got it really looking nice, and we really, really enjoyed it. And after 11 years of being there, an opportunity came to sell it. We thought after 10, 11 years, we were going to sell. And then we put it in with them local Immobilier, nobody interested. And they were saying houses are very difficult to shift in Italy. So anyway, one day along comes this Timo. I think he was Norwegian, wasn't he? Norwegian.
Yes.
And he was really keen on buying it. Lovely guy. He spoke English, Russian, all the rest of it. So he helped us out, actually, with all the selling procedure. Again, talk about jumping through hoops. It has to be seen to be believed. But that's what we did. We thought we'd look a gift horse in the mouth. We were going to sell it. So that's what we did. And we moved over to our house in Florida. Both our children at that time were working over here. Our son was in Massachusetts and our daughter was working in Florida. So consequently, we move over here. 6 months later, our son gets moved to Singapore, and our daughter goes on tour with the Cirque du Soleil in Europe. So we are now here looking after a cat.
That's a good question. I would like to ask you guys out there, as we're boomers on travel, so we're not youngsters, how many of us follow our children around or want to be close to our children? I'll tell you quick, we are sitting right here now in Tupper Lake, New York, which is a beautiful, beautiful place in the Adirondacks. And I grew up on the ski resort here. I grew up in a ski resort. I grew up about 70 miles north of here, up in St. Lawrence County, up by the St. Lawrence River. And my dad took me to Tupper Lake in the wintertime, ski Big Tupper. Every weekend we skied here. Irene's parents brought her up in this area in the spring and summer, and they camped all year. So we have wonderful, wonderful, wonderful childhood memories. So when we retired, we had a place we got in a place in Florida, and our daughter calls us and our son-in-law who are in the travel business. Irene, do you want to tell the rest of that story? This is really good. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that can really, really relate to this.
Well, when Nicole talks to me about travel, I listen. And she said, Mom, I want to give you a heads up that we're going to start a business up in the Adirondack Mountains, maybe in Lake Placid, because at that time they had been in the ski business at one time. They had an all-college ski business, and it worked out great for them. And she says, they started looking at property in Tupper Lake, New York. So we said, okay, we'll look too. And they were going to buy, so we went ahead and bought. Well, then we had this place. We told her we bought. And then 2 weeks later, she called me back and says, Mom, we're not going to look there anymore. We're going to live in Maine. I said, what? Well, we already had a done deal here. But we have never regretted spending our summers up here. Like Mike said, we both have a lot of memories here. And it's really sort of hot to stay in Florida in the summer. We realize that as we get older, it gets a little bit less tolerant for us. So here we are with our friends. And we do have friends that come and visit us. And we just really love that. And these friends that are here today, we adore. We have a good time with them. And they're just delightful. And I hope you've enjoyed listening to them.
So I guess where are we going to be next? We don't know. I don't know if our daughter and son-in-law are going to move to who knows where, because they have international travel consultants. So we might be maybe we'll be living in renting from you guys in Wales next year. We don't know that.
Absolutely not, Mike. It's going to be Italy, because I know it may be difficult to buy in Italy. However, you can always rent, and the people we've spoken to, some previous expats have rented. Their experience was a little bit different because they didn't have to go through all the challenges, but there's still a lot of challenges when you're an expat and you leave your country and you go, and it takes a lot of courage for people to go and try follow their dreams. But at this point of our lives, I think that's what we need to do. We need to move forward, and if you see something you want to try, well, just go for it.
And the thing is, as we say on Boomers and Travel here, we try to steer people because there is an inexpensive travel. And if you do your research, you can really, and Italy is wonderful. And we were in southern Italy, way down, where were we at? The rents and so forth were inexpensive.
Rota Gargano. And,
we got that right.
And I hope I said it right, but please, I won't feel offended if you correct me. But there's a lot of places you can travel in Italy, and at certain times of season, and even in the summertime, of course, it's fairly hot there, but it's hot in the U.S., and you can find some really good places, good airfares.
They do say the health service in northern Italy, as you get older, is far, far better than southern Italy.
Well, thanks, Barb. That's good information. But, I guess a lot of us, we'll go to Paris, or we'll go to Rome, or we'll go to Florence, or we'll go to Venice, Amsterdam, and all that. But there's so much more to see, to get out with the people, the off the beaten track. Not the cities, get off the beaten track and spend a couple months somewhere.
Barbara, what do you like about Europe? Because you've been in Europe for almost all your life, and you've lived there. And can you tell us a little bit about the culture and what you like about the culture there?
I just love not the cities, not the tourist places, the little villages that people don't even hear about. They are wonderful. The people are wonderful. The food is good. It's just absolutely amazing. The local weekly dances with food, the walks they do, walks that you go on, that gastronomic walks where you go from village to village and have food and wine in each village. It's amazing, but a lot of people don't hear about that. They hear about Rome and Italy and Amsterdam and Paris. They don't hear about the small local places, which are absolutely amazing.
That's why we love having guests like Barb and Rob on, because they do share this information about, the small villages and so forth. They've lived there. They know that you can certainly get away from the big cities and enjoy yourself. I remember a time when Mike and I went to Sicily. This was probably back in the 90s, before 2000, and we were there 3 weeks. And I remember we didn't know anybody when we got there, but by the time we left, we had gone to a funeral, we had gone to a wedding, we had gone to a communion, we had gone to a confirmation.
All the same family.
And all in the same family. We made lots of friends. And, and anytime we go back, we're welcome back there. So this is what we really love about traveling.
And I'm going to tell you, folks, we're doing a podcast here. We're not in a studio. So everything's not controlled. And that noise you hear is the wind. It's just a beautiful evening here in Tupper Lake. And the hummingbirds. And I think there's a bottle of Barefoot Merlot that everybody's partaking in.
It's lubricating this conversation.
That's true, but hey, that's what it's all about. Just having a good time with friends. And matter of fact, I look out on the lake, and I don't know how many geese are out there, maybe 100? I don't know, maybe 100 of them out there swimming around in just nature and just a beautiful, beautiful evening.
So I hope that our listeners have really enjoyed this. I know we've really enjoyed being here with Rob and Barb. And we hope you'll stay tuned for our next podcast. We actually call it a Boomcast. We're going to be doing it next week in the Adirondacks. And we have a whole lot of things to share with you about the Adirondacks. So we hope you'll be listening to us. Until then, we want to say goodbye. But we always like to close our program with an Italian saying. And I'm going to let Barbara say it because she does it the best.
Arrivederci.
Boomers on Travel thanks you for being a part of our growing travel family. Join us next week for Travel Talk, focused on value and exciting travel destinations.